Let's talk about Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals because I do believe right now that this organization is finally putting the right pieces around Kyler Murray for the first time in a very long time. Now, we have seen Kyler Murray be in the NFL for a couple of years now, and he has not been a bad quarterback at all, but he has not been that transcendent talent that a lot of people thought that he would be coming out of Oklahoma. I still think that Kyler Murray can be a top quarterback in the NFL, and his skill set it screams being a top 10 to top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He just has not been that guy. And they have put some pieces around him, but overall, the coaching staffs have not been the best. I think that Jonathan Gannon will be a very good head coach moving forward. He's the former defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, and we saw this season, he got the most out of this team that he could. This was not a very talented Cardinals team. They had some talented players, but overall, as a team, they did not have the best pieces. It's the reason why they were one of the worst teams in the NFL. It wasn't just because Kyler Murray missed a lot of time recovering from that ACL injury that he suffered a year before against the New England Patriots on a Monday Night Football game. So I believe that you finally have a good head coach in Jonathan Gannon. He is miles ahead of Cliff Kingsbury. And I think that is where we started to see Kyler Murray's growth get stunted as a player. Cliff Kingsbury was not ready to be an NFL head coach. He's one of the few coaches of all time that has been fired, and he was promoted to being an NFL head coach. He got fired in college. He comes over to the NFL, and he's an NFL head coach because he wanted to coach up Kyler Murray, and they thought that it would be a great fit. And at times, it looked good, but he was a young head coach. He was not ready for that spot. He could be a solid offensive coordinator. We'll see what he could be with the Washington Commanders because that's his new role. But as the main offensive play caller and head coach of the Cardinals, it was a bust because of the moves that they did make. They traded for Rodney Hudson. They traded for DeAndre Hopkins. They also traded for Marquise Brown. Now, I will say this. DeAndre Hopkins, he missed a lot of time with the Arizona Cardinals dealing with a knee injury. But they look way better on the field with him than they did without him. And you can say, hey, DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best wide receivers of all time. That is true. But at the same time, we got to see Kyler Murray not being a structured offense. You can't tell me those first couple of years when he was in the NFL, they're running a structured offense. It was a one-read system to DeAndre Hopkins, and that was it. Cliff Kingsbury did not move him around. With the Houston Texans, we got to see Bill O'Brien move him around from inside the slot to the outside. They use him primarily as an outside wide receiver, and I don't have a problem with that, but just give the defense different looks. They didn't do that, and it put a lot of stress on Kyler Murray that didn't need to be there because he was still a young quarterback at the time. Even though he was great coming out outside of college, you still have to develop these guys to the next level. And I'm not going to just put it all on Cliff Kingsbury. Kyler Murray had a turnover problem early in his career. He'll hold on to the football for too long and he'll run himself into sacks. But the offensive line protection was not the best, and the coaching did not help him out either. Yes, players play, but the coaches are supposed to go out there and put the players into the best situation because that's a huge argument that a lot of people like to use. The players have to execute. That is true. But when you're just running a bunch of slants and just a bunch of deep routes down the field and no one else is able to get open but DeAndre Hopkins, now you force Kyler Murray to run around and scramble around. And we have to talk about this argument as well. Kyler Murray has dealt with a lot of injuries to the ankles, a lot of injuries to the lower body. Before he suffered that torn ACL, he has missed a lot of time. If he wants to be that franchise quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals moving forward, he has to stay healthy and he has to protect himself. He has to be able to go out there and slide out of bounds sometimes. Don't take unnecessary hits. And he's gotten better at that. His rookie season, he got beat up a lot behind the line of scrimmage. That's why they went out there and they tried to make major moves to the offensive line. I felt like Cliff Kingsbury was too focused on the offensive skill position than he was on the offensive line protection. They didn't slide protection to the left or to the right to help out Kyler Murray. And this is a kid early on, he cannot recognize the blitz like some of the veteran quarterbacks can in the NFL. And that's part of a learning curve. Coaches are supposed to help with that. And when you have a young head coach who has never coached in the NFL before up to that point, that is what's going to happen. Jonathan Gannon is a special defensive mind. So he can go out there, he can say, hey, we can counter this right here. He's going to help Drew Petzing. Even though Drew Petzing is the main offensive play caller, Jonathan Gannon is still going to have a heavy say-so in that offense because he's such a great defensive mind. The Philadelphia Eagles defense fell off a cliff when he left. And that's not by coincidence because Arizona Cardinals defense looked very good playing against teams within that division. They beat the Dallas Cowboys. They gave the Philadelphia Eagles a lot of problems. They gave the New York Giants problems as well. They did a great job going against that division. So when I look at what Jonathan Gannon is able to do, he's not only going to be able to go out there and help out the defense. He's going to go out there and help out Kyler Murray as well, because he'll be going against that defense in practice, in mini camp, in OTAs. He's going to be going against those defensive systems. So that's a great move. I really wish that they would have just gone with a veteran head coach at the time when they first drafted Kyler Murray, instead of just going with a young guy like Cliff Kingsbury, because I really do believe that he has hurt this kid a lot, even up to this point. And I will also say this as well. Kyler Murray did himself no favors, because when he signed that big money deal, when they made the NFL playoffs, because it just wasn't just 100% horrible with Cliff Kingsbury, they did make the NFL playoffs. They went scoreless in the second half against the Los Angeles Rams. They rarely did anything in the second half against the Rams a couple of years ago. They didn't even cross the 50-yard line in the second half against the Rams, because Sean McVay outcoached Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray had zero time in the pocket. Aaron Donald was screaming down his neck, and the same with Von Miller as well. Zero time in the pocket. The thing was this: when he signed that contract, it had a clause in there. He needed to go out there and study more. That was the biggest thing. And that raised a lot of eyebrows, because a lot of people are like, what do you mean he has to go out there and study more? They're getting Johnny Manziel vibes, even though Kyler Murray is 1,000 times better, 1,000,000 times better than Johnny Manziel at this level. I'm comparing the guys into study habits. Kyler Murray likes to play video games. So a lot of people assume, hey, he's just playing video games. He's not watching film. He's not using up that tablet. And the way that today's NFL works, and a lot of players and coaches have confirmed this, they can go into their little database and they can say, hey, has this guy used a tablet today? How many hours are on the tablet? Did he study 12 to 15 hours this week? Kyler Murray was below that, so that's why they put it in the contract. But at the same time, the Arizona Cardinals leaked that information. You don't leak contract details unless you want to prove a point. They're trying to send a message to Kyler Murray. And instead, you really pissed off your franchise quarterback. I don't think they should have put that out there for everyone to see, but they did. That was a big talking point. I think Kyler Murray does work hard. I don't know him personally, but you can't get to the NFL level and have the success that he has had without working hard. And he has developed over the last couple of years. I feel like he's one of the most hated quarterbacks in the NFL for no reason, because he is undersized. When he is on the field, they are a significantly better team. And you can say that for every team in the NFL with their starting quarterback. The same with the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, they're going to be better with Patrick Mahomes. The same with the Buffalo Bills. If Josh Allen goes down, they're not going to look the same. But this is a team that could rarely do anything on the offensive end without Kyler Murray. And as soon as he comes back against the Atlanta Falcons this season, they win that game, and he carried them to win that game in the second half. The talent is there. It just comes down to the coaching and the pieces around Kyler Murray. And speaking of the pieces, they really butchered this roster over the last couple of years. They went and got J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt was still a phenomenal player, but he was behind his prime. He still ended his career with double-digit sacks in the season. But when he walked away, they did not have another pass rusher on the bench ready to come in and give you immediate production. So they had to go out there and draft a guy, and B.J. Ojulari. They did not have another wide receiver that you go out there and to depend on if you were able to move on from DeAndre Hopkins. And they cut DeAndre Hopkins. Yes, they traded a first-round pick for Marquise Hollywood Brown, but how did that work out? He was only worth the second or third round pick, in my opinion. You trade a first round pick for Marquise Hollywood Brown, a guy that's dealt with numerous injuries in the past and has had a dropping issue, and he wasn't terrible with the Arizona Cardinals. But why are you overpaying for that type of talent? Is it because he was a former teammate of Kyler Murray? And I have no problems with Marquise Brown as a player, but a first round pick, that is very rich for a player. You didn't even trade a first round pick to get DeAndre Hopkins. You traded a second round pick in David Johnson. But you're going to trade a first-round pick for Hollywood Brown? Granted, Hollywood Brown was younger, but at the same time, he was not in the same conversation with DeAndre Hopkins. So that was a failed trade for the Arizona Cardinals. They also had Zach Ertz behind his prime, yet another guy that you're depending on. Had some solid games for the Arizona Cardinals, but he was not the same tight end, especially towards the end of his tenure with the Cardinals that he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now this is where I get into what they're doing right. I talked about this a couple minutes ago. You go out there with Jonathan Gannon, very good coach in my opinion. Drew Petzing, structured offense, something that Kyler Murray needs to be in. And now you finally have a consistent run game. James Conner has been a very good running back for the Arizona Cardinals. And this season, he finally got the break over 1,000 yards rushing on the season. Was a very good running back, 1,040 rushing yards on the season. That was the sixth most in the NFL by a running back, 7 rushing touchdowns on the season. The man averaged 5 yards a carry. He's a tank. But you also drafted Trey Benson as well, a very good running back in this year's draft class. He can come in and he can be that counterback to James Conner, because you're still going to run the football with James Conner. He's going to be the power back. When you need 3 to 4 yards, he's going to push the pile and get it for you. Look at what the Cardinals did against the Steelers. Granted, the Steelers were playing bad football at the time, but they still went out there and they ran the football down their throats. And that was a top defense in the NFL this season. And I think that's the way that you want to go about things. Run the football, work into play action. Kyler Murray was one of the best quarterbacks in college because he could work off of play action. And now you can't stack the box anymore. They tried to stack the box against Josh Dobbs, and Josh Dobbs played well. But we all knew when Kyler Murray was ready to come back from that ACL injury, he was going to be the guy. So now you can do read option again with him, James Conner. You can do the same thing with him and Trey Benson. And now you're adding in Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the best wide receiving prospects we have ever seen. I think that he's going to be a true number one day one for the Cardinals, and he's going to have to be that guy. I'm not saying that he's going to go out there and have Puka Nacua numbers, but they're going to force feed him the football as much as possible. And he's a great route runner. He's just a perfect wide receiver, and he can get behind safeties and cornerbacks as well. You have Michael Wilson, who had a solid season this season with the Arizona Cardinals. He's going to be a very good number 2 wide receiver. Trey McBride, one of the top receiving tight ends in the NFL this season. The man had 81 catches for 825 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. He averaged 10 yards a catch. That's a first down a catch. The man is phenomenal, and he deserves his flowers. Because when guys like Travis Kelce and George Kittle start to slow down, he's going to be in the conversation if he can keep this up with being one of the best receiving tight ends in the NFL. He's already in that conversation based off of this season alone. The man almost had 1,000 receiving yards on the season by catching passes from guys like Josh Dobbs and Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray is amazing, by the way. You also had Clayton Tune play a game as well. When they traded away Josh Dobbs, he had to come in there. It was a game right before Kyler Murray was able to come back and be cleared for contact. But the offense finally looks good. And you drafted Paris Johnson Jr. in last year's first round, who had a very good rookie season. And I think that he's going to be a franchise tackle moving forward. So they have the pieces on the offensive end. They're just young. And one thing that really hurts the Arizona Cardinals, if they were not in this division, they may be a top team in any other division. Because you have the quarterback. I have a lot of belief in him. You have the star running back. You have the good rookie wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. You're just in the division with the Los Angeles Rams, Seattle Seahawks, and the San Francisco 49ers. And the 49ers are one of the best teams in the NFL. That's what's working against the Arizona Cardinals. This division is so tough. It's going to take a couple of years for them to be a top contending team yet again in this division. But if developed correctly, they can be built for the long run. Because like I mentioned before, Deebo Samuel is not going to play for the next couple of years with the San Francisco 49ers. We'll see if Geno Smith can keep up that play with the Seattle Seahawks. And Matthew Stafford, he doesn't have 4 to 5 years left in his career. And those are going to be franchise-altering moves for every single team in this division. Kyler Murray is still young. That's the one thing that's working towards the Arizona Cardinals. So if you are a Cardinals fan, just stay patient. And be patient with Jonathan Gannon as well. And I know that sucks to hear, because a couple of years ago, when they made the playoffs, that was really their chance to go out there and make a deep playoff run. But unfortunately, you didn't have the right pieces on the offensive line at the tackle positions. And you did not have the right head coach in Cliff Kingsbury. But Jonathan Gannon will develop over time. Drew Petzing will as well. I have more faith in those guys. And hopefully Kyler Murray can continue to develop. That's what I really hope for. In 8 games this season, 10 passing touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Not the best numbers, but not horrible. Didn't have a true number 1 wide receiver. No offense to Hollywood Brown, who dealt with an injury in his last season with the Arizona Cardinals, by the way, a foot injury. Which yet again, why do you trade a first round pick for a wide receiver that's dealt with foot injuries in the past? Just makes zero sense to me. It's also another reason why they brought in a brand new general manager who's done a great job, by the way. As far as their defense, they have a lot of things that they have to figure out. Isaiah Simmons, they moved on from him. They had no idea how to use him, because this is a guy at Clemson, was a beast, played safety, played linebacker. The problem is in the NFL, where is he going to be used at the best? And unfortunately, at linebacker, he showed some moments. At safety, he showed some moments as well. It just wasn't first round pick worthy moments. So they moved on from him and traded him to the New York Giants. You also have Zaven Collins. I think Zaven Collins can be a very good pass rusher moving forward. Solid player, but he hasn't looked like that first round pick just yet. And no way am I calling him a bust. 3.5 sacks on the season, 1 interception. I think that he is a very good run stopper, but he has to go out there and put a lot more pressure on the quarterback if he wants to stay around with the Arizona Cardinals. You also have B.J. Ojulari, who I mentioned a couple minutes ago, 4 sacks on the season in his rookie season. I think that he will continue to get better over time. He had a lot of pressures in the last couple of games. Bilal Nichols is a very good defensive tackle against stopping the run and pushing the pocket as well. Only 1.5 sacks on the season, but he's not going to go out there and give you a lot of sacks. He's going to go out there and stop the run. That's pretty much what he is. You have Justin Jones as well, who is a solid interior tackle in his own right, 4.5 sacks on the season. Kazir White had a very good season this season, 53 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 1 interception. And their secondary is sneaky. Budda Baker is still one of the better safeties in the NFL to have. He dealt with a neck injury a couple years ago. Hasn't looked the same since, but he's still a very good safety to have around, especially when he's healthy. The cornerbacks, they have a lot of good potential there. Garrett Williams is not a true number 1 corner, but I think he can develop into becoming that. He's only 23 years old. Let's give him some time. They do have Sean Murphy-Bunting. He's going to be that veteran cornerback. He's been around the NFL for a couple of years now. He's 26 years old, 2 interceptions on the season, 42 solo tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 8 pass deflections. They also drafted Max Melton in this draft class as well, who is a very good press man corner coming out of Rutgers. 3 interceptions on the season, 3 pass deflections. He's 6 foot, 190 pounds. You can want him to bulk up a little bit, but he's very twitchy. And he can play inside the slot. He can play on the outside as well. So they're secondary. They have the pieces that fit Jonathan Gannon's system. And if they can run their defense similar to what the Philadelphia Eagles had when they went to the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to be in a special situation. But the keys for the Arizona Cardinals is to keep Kyler Murray upright, keep him developing, and run that football as much as possible with Trey Benson and James Conner. That run game is going to be a problem. I can easily see the Arizona Cardinals having a top 5 run game for this upcoming season. And I'm not over-exaggerating when I'm saying that. Their offensive line is so physical and they're so good at getting a push right now. They could fall off a cliff, but with the season that James Conner just had, it was phenomenal. And it wasn't just like he was just fighting defenders from behind the line of scrimmage. The man had some open holes, and he'll just go straight down defenders' mouths and just smash them out the way. So that offensive line can continue to develop and they can continue to get a push. You can work off play action, work off that run game, and play through your defense, even though they're still very young. And this defense had a lot of good moments. Look at what they did against the Dallas Cowboys. Granted, the Dallas Cowboys had just lost Trayvon Diggs for the season. Cowboy fans like to use that as an excuse. Fine, cool. That would hurt your defense. That had nothing to do with your offense. And Dak Prescott is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. And look at what Jonathan Gannon did to him. Granted, he has a lot of familiarity in that division because he's the former defensive coordinator for the Eagles. But at the same time, that's a top offensive unit he did that to. The same with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think that they have the right pieces moving forward. But I want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. How do you guys feel about Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals? And do they have the right pieces around Kyler Murray? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, we want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for watching the video, guys. God bless. Peace.